Hello everyone, I welcome you to another video by Online Study for You, and in this video today we will be discussing about the TCS interviews. Okay, so we have done a couple of podcasts and we have tried to get the information from the students who were selected for different roles by TCS this year and the last year. So by the statistics, whatever data we have today is only because we have tried to get in touch with students who have cleared the exams and the interview process and have finally come here. So to begin with the video, let's first try to understand the different roles of TCS and how to get them. So TCS usually offers 3 different roles: TCS Ninja, then there comes TCS Digital, then finally comes our TCS Prime role, which offers you about 9 LPA. So when we talk about these 3 different roles, let's first understand which role you fit into and which role to be able to get. Alright, so when you give the online assessment by TCS, the TCS NQT test, if you are able to solve 50 to 70% questions from part A and part B, then there's a very high chance that you're selected for the Ninja role. But if you're able to solve 50 to 70% of part A, part B and at least one coding question, then you are selected for the digital role. But if you are again able to solve 50 to 70% of part B, part A, part B and 2 coding questions, then you are selected for the Prime role. So each package is going to differ. The Ninja role pays you about 3.3 LPA, digital role for undergraduates pays you about 7 LPA and Prime role pays you about 9 LPA. So that's why here if you've noticed the trend from the statistics, then the number of coding questions you're able to solve in the TCS test are going to determine the role that you have been given during your interviews. So one thing that we have also noticed was that usually after giving the TCS NQT test, about 30 to 45 days later, the students have gotten the news that they were selected for these particular roles. So now that we know how much to score and what to score in order to get a specific role, let's try to deep dive and try to understand what these roles ask you during your interviews. Let's start with the TCS Ninja role, which for the undergraduates pays about 3.3 LPA. So the TCS Ninja role here, there are 3 interviews that you have to go through in order to go through the entire interview procedure. There is the technical round, there's the managerial round and finally the HR round. TR round, MR round and the HR round. Okay. So the TCS Ninja students have noticed one trend, that the TR and the MR round was mixed and put into one single round for them, and then there was an HR round asked separately. So first round, that is the TR plus the MR round. When we talk about this round in specific for the Ninja role students, so it lasted for 20 to 30 minutes. But the HR round lasted from anywhere 10 to 15 minutes. So now that we know about the duration of the different interviews, let's try to understand what kind of questions were asked for each role. Okay, when we talk about the Ninja role in specific, so the technical questions that were asked were very basic. What is the difference between C++ and Java? What is inheritance in Java? Do you know SQL? What is the difference between IPv4 and IPv6? What is method overloading and what is method overriding? Do you know what normalization in SQL is? Do you know the different forms in normalization? Do you know inheritance in C++ or Java? Do you know what operating systems are? So most questions that were asked were very basic. So if you go on to the articles that ask you for 50 important questions from C++, 50 important questions from Java or any of those articles, and if you're able to get the answers, then you will be able to solve the ninja rule. There was very rarely that the coding questions were even asked to the students from the ninja rule, but whenever they were, what they do is they give you the paper and the pen to write only the logic. You don't have to write the entire code. You only have to write the logic of the question asked. And the questions that are asked are very simple. They are asked some of the examples that we got in touch with the students, and they told that if a number is a prime number or not, right? So write the logic for that. Palindrome of a number. Reverse the number and check if the number is still the same. Code for that, the logic for that. Fibonacci series, logic for that. So very simple, very basic coding questions were asked to the students who were selected for the ninja rule from the technical round. The managerial round in specific consisted of questions that was situation based. For example, let me give you an example of this one question that was majorly asked during the managerial round. That was, say you are the lead of the project and you are having a problem with the teammates that are working with you. How would you overcome this problem? How would you motivate people to work on the days when they don't feel like working? How would you bind people together in a team to work together? These were the situation-based questions that were asked in the managerial round. There were other questions also asked in the managerial round which were puzzle-based. If you were to cut a cake into 3 parts, but you have to get 8 pieces out of it. You're supposed to cut one cake in 3 parts, but you're supposed to get 8 pieces out of it. How would you do it? All of these puzzle tricky questions also from probability. For example, say there is a bag of 4 blue balls and 6 yellow balls. So what is the probability of picking a ball that is blue in color? So these are very simple questions. If you know the basic probability, you would be able to solve these questions. So these kind of questions were majorly seen from the managerial round. Very simple, very basic. So the entire technical round plus the managerial round put together, it only lasted for 20 to 30 minutes for the students who were selected for the ninja role. Then after that got over, the same day, their HR round was scheduled and only for about 10 to 15 minutes. And very basic questions were asked again in the HR round. For example, on strength, what are your strengths? What is your weakness? How do you overcome challenges? And questions like, are you willing to relocate? What do you know about TCS? Why do you want to be a part of this organization? So all of those questions which are like, typical HR based questions, there are multiple articles on Google. If you go onto the Google and if you look for the articles, I am sure you will be able to find all of these questions, and in fact the answers to these questions, the approach to answer these questions would also be found. So I would totally recommend all of you to check out these articles from the HR round or the, whatever. One thing that I also want to mention explicitly is always focus on your resume. We have noticed a trend that TCS has been preferring Java or SQL in specific, but again, most questions are going to be on the basis of the skills that you have mentioned in your resume. So that's why I recommend all of you to go through all the important questions from your resume before you start giving your interview, so you are confident about, even if a little complex questions are asked, because usually there are very basic questions asked which would be covered, but to build your confidence to be able to answer all the questions, I would recommend you to go through all the articles which have the important interview questions listed down. Second thing is, the questions whichever is going to be asked to you are only going to be on the basis of your resume, of your skills that you have mentioned. Besides that, one point to note is your projects also play a very important role in your TR and MR round. The managers in specific have known to ask about the projects. Questions on projects like, for example, if you have built a project on machine learning, then they will ask you which algorithm did you use? Why did you choose that algorithm? What in specific does that algorithm do that the other algorithms fail at doing? So these are some of the questions that are asked, and questions like, what were the major drawbacks that you faced while building your project? How did you overcome them? What did you learn from your project about team management, about time management, about leadership? What in specific did you work on this project? So questions like these were also asked. So to conclude, especially for the Ninja role, the TR-MR was put together and it was only for 20 to 30 minutes. The HR round was done separately on the same day for about 10 to 15 minutes. TR round basically consists of the technical questions, which were very, very basic and which were more like the comparison questions, like C++ versus Java, method overloading versus method overriding, and all of those really basic questions. The MR round, which was again this first round, asked you situation-based questions, project-based questions, skill-based questions, and something about you, like what do you do, what are your hobbies. All of these were asked in the managerial round. The HR round was a typical HR round where the HR questions were asked about strengths, weakness, relocation, company, etc. So this was the trend in the TCS Ninja interview role. Now let's move to the digital and the prime role. Digital and the prime interviews was like, very similar to each other in some way or the other. So the questions that were asked were also very similar in some way or the other. So for the second part of the video that we are going to discuss today, we are discussing the interviews of the digital and the prime role. So the digital and the prime role interviews, they went on from anywhere from 30 minutes to even 90 minutes. This is a very rare case, but there have been cases where the interview has went up to 90 minutes. Very rare though. Usually you can expect the interview to be anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes if you are selected for the digital or the prime role. Again, same pattern we have noticed, the TR and the MR round were put together and HR round was done separately for them. So in the TR round, what questions were asked? Let's deep dive into that. The TR round consisted of some coding questions where the pen and the paper was given to you and you were supposed to write the logic for it. And here the questions were asked from arrays, from strings, from competitive programming was also asked a little bit here and there. Cloud computing, like all the trending technologies like cloud computing, artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science. If all of these were mentioned on your resume, then the interviews have touched base on these questions as well, on these topics as well. So if you are selected for the digital or the prime role, then you are going to be asked quite a few questions on all the topics that you have mentioned on your resume, the topics that are trending, the topics that are important for you to crack good roles. For example, the DSA, and then comes your competitive programming, etc. So deep diving into the technical round of the digital and the prime role, we have understood that because this goes on anywhere typically from 30 to about 60 or even 90 minutes, we have understood that this round is going to be slightly tougher when compared to the Ninja role interviews. Here, you will be also asked the basic questions like, what is time complexity, space complexity, questions on arrays, strings, linked list. Then, a lot of other topics where, the interviews asked for SQL, and they ask questions on DBMS, on operating systems, like what is a deadlock and what are the conditions for a deadlock in operating systems. In DBMS, what are the asset properties? What is normalization? What is denormalization? And when do you prefer each of them? And how does each of them help you? Then we talked about the different types of normalization forms. So 1NF, 2NF, 3NF, and finally the CNF, BCNF. Right? All of these questions were asked. And there were questions asked on the trending technologies, like I said. Most discussion also happened about the projects, where the interviewers asked about the projects that the children have worked on, and what technologies were used, and the same typical questions like what did you exactly work on, what are the features, why did you use this technology in specific, if you faced any challenges, how did you overcome those challenges, those kind of questions. Puzzles where tricky kind of questions were asked. For example, the situation based questions were also asked, where like if you're not bonding between the team, if you don't like your manager, if you don't like your team lead, how are you going to deal in situations like these? And the category based questions, where like if you were to select odd one out from elephant, donkey, cat and vehicle, which one would you choose? So some simple questions to some really complex questions were seen in the digital and the prime role students, in the TR and the MR role. Questions on strings, linked list, proper logic based questions where you have to, for example, reverse a linked list. So the students who were selected for the digital and the prime role also were asked different questions, like for example, if you have mentioned Python in your resume, then questions on Python, for example, different kinds of libraries used in the Python, what are they used for, exception handling in C++, Java or Python, and if you know DBMS and SQL, questions on SQL and DDL, DML, DCL, and to write queries, to insert, update, create, delete, etc. So all of these were asked for students who were selected for the digital and the prime roles. And we also noticed the pattern that the managerial round specifically added a personal touch to it. So questions were asked, students were asked about where they had done their schooling from, their college from, and if they are willing to relocate, and what motivated them to give the TCS test, and what motivates them to join TCS. And if there were also students who were asked, now that you are selected for the digital role, but eventually if you are given the ninja role, would you have a problem with it? So questions like these were asked for the managerial round. The technical round, on the other hand, was a little hard when compared to the ninja interview, where questions were asked on competitive programming, arrays, linked lists, strings, basic DSA, and all the trending technologies and whatever was mentioned on your resume. And projects, question on projects were also asked in a very elaborative manner. So most of the interviews, they lasted for 30 to 45 minutes, the technical round and the managerial round put together. Finally comes the HR round, which lasted anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes. HR round again consisted of the typical HR questions, where the HR asked about the strengths, the weakness. Some HRs also asked for situation-based questions, like how would you be able to handle pressure, and if you're not able to meet the deadline on time, what would you do in order to recompensate for that. Questions like these were asked in the HR round, and about the relocation, about joining, about where they come from. All of these questions were asked in the HR round. So this was the process, this was the procedure that students have gone through. Mostly the technical round and the managerial round were put together. The HR round was done separately. For the ninja students, it was anywhere between 20 to 30 minutes. But for the prime and the digital students, it was anywhere between 30 to even 90 minutes in some very rare cases. But the HR round for the ninja students was only for 10 to 15 minutes. But for the digital and the prime students, it was for up to 30 minutes. So this is what we have noticed the pattern. In order to conclude, I want to tell all of you that if you're going for the ninja role, know the basics really well. Go through all the articles, go through the important questions that are asked in the interview and try to learn all of that. Please go through your resume and please only put the important questions on your resume. So the questions that are asked are only resume based and something that you already know. And be thorough with your projects that you have built on. The technologies that you've used, the work you've done, the features that you have added, the algorithms that you have picked. Please be fully aware of all of that. And to the students who are selected for the prime and the digital and the prime roles, I want you to know that it is going to be slightly harder for you. Try to know the basic DSA, or even sometimes advanced DSA, really depends on the recruiter. Sometimes students have been asked really basic questions like write a prime number, see if it's palindrome or not. But in some cases we've also seen that students were asked questions like reverse a linked list, questions on hash map, and these kind of questions were seen for the students who were selected for the digital and the prime roles. So be thorough with what you have mentioned on your resume, be thorough with the projects that you have built, know the technologies really well, know the project and the features really well, so you are not stuck anywhere. And the manager round is going to add a little personal touch to all of that. You are going to be asked situation-based questions. You are going to be asked about your home location, your relocation questions. All of those are going to be asked in your managerial round. And the HR round is known to be typically the HR round, where if you go through the articles that are on Google, you will be able to, I think, tackle all the HR rounds. So I don't think you will have a problem with that. So in conclusion, this is what we had for this video, and thank you for sticking around, and I hope this video really helps.